Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem of my Blitz game number 323. My opponent here started with f4, the bird opening, and I play e5, the from Gambit. I think if we back up, yeah, d5 is the most popular move here, and it's good enough to give black an advantage, so it's a reasonable way to play. Also, knight f6 looks interesting, but e5 is a line known as the from Gambit, and you're just giving back a pawn right away if he wants to take it, but you get some interesting play. And I've played the from Gambit before. You can look on the channel for from Gambit. You'll find some games. But my opponent plays the move e4 here, and we've transposed at this point into a King's Gambit. So we're not in the bird's opening or the from Gambit anymore at all. We're in a King's Gambit. And I play the main line of the King's Gambit. I take the pawn. And now the two main moves here are knight f3 and bishop to c4. My opponent chose knight f3, which is the more popular move, and I went g5, the main line. And now the idea here, and what I'm playing for, is it's not just to hold on to this pawn, it's also to limit this bishop, this dark squared bishop on c1 would like to develop to this f4 square, and by controlling the f4 square and even the e3 square, I'm taking squares away from that bishop. So that's the idea of my play in the early stages here. Now, the way that white plays against this is often with the move h4. You can see that's the top choice. And just to show you, the main line goes like this: h4, g4, and then knight to e5. Now, knight to g5 is a very interesting piece sacrifice. You can play this, but it should be good for white. You kick the knight, and the knight has nowhere to go. Look at all his retreat squares are covered. So he sacrifices on f7, and white gets some quick development. Bishop c4 check, queen takes g4. All these moves are possible here, and and it's a dangerous position for black. Black can get into trouble pretty quickly, but he is a piece up on the other hand, and can go on to play this for a win. So that's an exciting way to play. And the main line, I guess, is knight to e5, a more positional way to play. And you get into an interesting and complicated game. A lot of fun for both sides. So my opponent, instead of playing h4, though, played bishop c4, the second choice. And actually, this is a move I see more often in practice. I guess people are a little bit afraid of these crazy lines with the h4 and g4. So I play the move bishop g7. I want to stop the knight from coming into the e5 square and putting pressure on f7. It looks like, once again, g4 could be played there. And the engine is calling out for g4. It's interesting. It thinks that's just good for black. But these overextended pawns will get chewed up, so it's not like you're going to hold on to your pawn, and the structure you're left with is kind of messy. So I prefer to play like this and just keep some small edge. So my opponent plays d4, the main move, grabbing the center, and now I should probably play something like d6. Yeah, d6 is the main move here. I'm still interested in this idea of maybe developing my knight, and I can't develop my knight right now because it would interfere with the queen's defense of g5. The knight can just take g5 when I develop my knight. So I play the move h6, which you see is one of the moves, but maybe d6 is a little more accurate right here. Also helping to control this square e5. Okay, but still, this is a reasonable way to play. And then my opponent goes knight c3, just developing. And now we're pretty much out of the book, although it's clear from both the engine and the opening book that I should play the move d6 here. And instead I play the move c6. Now there is a motivation to c6, which is to, after c6, I'm going to control these squares and keep the knight from hopping into them. But I haven't done anything about the square e5, and he can push this pawn with pretty good effect here. So c6 is probably not the best move here. I think d6 is the way to play this. Okay, but I played c6, and then my opponent went h3. So he could strike out immediately with e5, and it looks like white has a good game at that point. So because of my mistake with c6. He plays h3, and now I'm okay again. I should just play knight e7 here. I realized this after I played knight f6. The idea with c6 also is to support the move d5 and shut down this bishop. Shut down this, that was a terrible arrow. Shut down the bishop, striking along this diagonal. And that's a reasonable plan here. d6 can also be played, just controlling the square e5. And d5 immediately. Now I did not think d5 immediately worked. Let's check this out. d5. And he takes... Oh, I'm just giving the pawn back. I guess this is okay. Instead of recapturing, now I go knight e7. So it's probably not all that different than playing knight e7 first, but maybe a little more, maybe a little quicker. Okay, so that's an interesting way to play d5 and then knight e7, or knight e7 immediately is good as well. But I played knight f6, and unfortunately this knight is now a target, and my opponent plays the best move here. You see e5, the only move to get an advantage to white. And now white is doing pretty good here. And I'm sort of forced into moving this knight somewhere it doesn't want to go. Looks like knight h5 may have been playable, but I went knight to d5. And I think this next move here is maybe one of the most instructive moments in this game. I thought this was bad because he's just going to take my knight here, win a pawn, and I'm left with kind of a funny looking pawn structure, and he has a lot of center influence. I thought this would be good for white. But the best play for white, if you look at the chess engine evaluation, is to just leave the knight there and play knight e4. So what's going on is that white is just continuing with his attack. He's bringing all his pieces towards my king. He's got pressure on the f6 square, and I'm actually in serious trouble. And this knight really isn't going anywhere. It's going to sit there and be a target for a long time. I'm going to have trouble developing my pieces. So instead, my opponent exchanged the knight, and this actually helped me out a bit. He takes the knight. Oh, he took with the bishop. Is there a problem taking with the knight first? Just out of curiosity. C takes d5. So bishop takes. Oh, there's the check. Aha. Always got to watch out for these tactics. Queen check would pick up the bishop. So it's important to take with the bishop first. Pawn takes. And now he can take with the knight because the check and the knight can just drop back. So he did that. And I just castled here. The material is even. He's gotten his pawn back. And he does have a lot of center influence. But it turns out in this position I'm going to be able to complete my development because I'm going to be able to get in the move d6. I'm going to try and undermine these advanced pawns. And I'll have squares for all my pieces. So basically all my problems have been solved. And he still is having trouble developing his dark squared bishop because I'm controlling these squares. So actually black is in good shape after this exchange on d5. Okay, so the game continues from here. He castled. I played d6. And he plays c4, shoring up his knight, and then that allows me to exchange out this pawn. Cancel that. I thought he was going to take back. Yeah, d takes e5 is probably the best way to play it. He played knight takes e5. And yeah, that just, well, it keeps his pawns together. But what's missing is this knight is not defended except by the pawn. So when I play bishop e6, I'm threatening to just take that knight and win a pawn, or at least mess up his pawns. The engine is recommending b3 here, yeah, so I can just win a pawn here. So really in this position he needs to take with the pawn. And what this does, in addition to this pawn here, if he can maintain it, will have some sort of cramping influence on my pieces. But I think the main point is the queen supporting the bishop here, so after bishop e6 I'm not really threatening to win anything. The queen is supporting the knight. Okay, so he took with the knight, I played bishop e6, and now I have the advantage. So I've come out of this after that last mistake with probably a winning position. He continues to play on, queen a4, trying to activate his pieces, but I can just pick up a pawn here, and it's not only picking up the pawn, it's eliminating some of his center influence. I still have, and now I have an easy way to develop my knight, which was the last piece I need to get into the action to allow my rooks to communicate. So white dropped back to knight f3. Okay, the engine's recommending king h1. Yeah, but okay, all these moves are good for black at this point. And now I can develop my knight. And well, let's just go on a few moves. There's not a whole lot happening. We're just logically playing here. I kick his queen, trying to chase it away from the defense of this pawn. Right here, queen takes b3 is what I played. The engine says I should just leave things as they are and just play some rook, either the a rook or the f rook to d8 and support my queen and let him trade if he wants to. But I went ahead and initiated the trade. I think this is still winning for white and maybe a little easier to play. He gets I put my rook on the d file and he pushes. And fortunately I noticed he does get some play with this pawn, so maybe that's why maintaining the queen there rather than exchanging was a little better. I did notice in time that this pawn is actually pinned, so he can't really take my knight here. So I can just double my rooks. Although the engine liked knight d4 there. I didn't want to allow this pawn to get too far advanced. But now it's saying bishop takes f4 is a good move. Aha, okay, yeah, this is a neat tactic that I missed. Bishop takes f4. What it does, I mean, he's sacrificing a piece, but he's defended his rook, so that this is no longer pinned. So if I grab the bishop, he'll grab my knight. My best move here is probably to move the knight away. To move the other rook out. Sorry, rook fd8 to re-establish the pin. But now this bishop can drop back, and I've managed to lose a pawn. Okay, so I'm still winning here, but that would be the most fighting continuation for black, and an interesting tactic. He grabs a pawn and unpins this pawn at the same time. Okay, he played bishop d2, finally getting that piece out, but now I can just grab the rook, and I'm grab the pawn, and I'm a couple pawns up, and this is pretty simple here. He tries to go after my weakened g-pawn, but it's defended here. I kick his bishop to try and provoke this exchange. And this is a pretty simply ending rook endgame. And after a few more moves, he resigned here. Yeah, I can just inch these pawns forward. I've got his king trapped and cut off, and after the king is forced back, well, I push this pawn forward, and then I take here, and that will force his king back, and I can push my pawns forward some more. So pretty straightforward win from this point. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.